When I heard that Barack Obama was going to give a speech in front of veterans in Fargo, North Dakota, invitation only, I thought I crashed the party.
I love you back.
Now that should worry you. Ha ha ha. Now go grab your fucking Bible.
So, I'm going to take a few questions at the end of my remarks, but
Invitation only questions.
I want to start off with a conversation about our veterans. You know, tomorrow we're going to mark the 4th of July with barbecues and parades and fireworks and time off with loved ones. It's always a special time. We're also going to have an opportunity to give thanks to our troops and to our veterans. Their sacrifice has made possible the freedoms that we enjoy. And keeping faith with those who serve must always be at the core of America. It's a core American value and a cornerstone of American patriotism.
Yet, you found fit to abandon us in a time of war.
Because America's commitment to its servicemen and women begins at enlistment, but it must never end. Without that commitment, I might not be here today.
No, asshead, you would not be here today.
My grandfather, Stanley Dunham, enlisted after Pearl Harbor and went on to march in Patton's army.
Wasn't it George Patton that smacked a guy for acting like a pussy?
During World War II.
No, I'm not saying that was Stanley Dunham, but...
My grandmother, meanwhile, worked on a bomber assembly line.
But safely away from the black folk.
And took care of my mother, who had been born at Fort Leavenworth. When my grandfather returned, it was to a country that gave him a chance to go to college on the GI Bill, to buy his first home with a loan from the FHA.
Oh boy, here we go.
To move his family west, all the way to Hawaii, where he and my grandmother helped raise me. And today, my grandfather is buried in Punch Bowl Cemetery, the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, where 776 victims of Pearl Harbor are laid to rest. I knew my grandfather, obviously, when he was older, but whenever I meet young men and women along the campaign trail who are serving in today's military.
Let me guess. You spit on him and call him fascist baby killer.
I think about my grandfather. I imagine him when he had enlisted. A fresh-faced young man of 23 with a hearty laugh and an easy smile. And so I see him in today's soldiers. And you know, these sons and daughters of America are the best and the bravest among us.
You're so full of shit, your eyes are brown.
And when our troops go into battle, they serve no faction or political party.
But they do serve the commander-in-chief. Hopefully, you'll never find that out.
They represent no race or region. They're simply Americans. They serve and fight and bleed together out of loyalty, not just to a place on a map or a certain kind of people, but to a set of ideals that we've been striving for since the first shots rang out at Lexington and Concord. The idea that America could be governed, not by men, but by laws, that we could be equal in the eyes of the law, that we could be free to say what we want and write what we want and worship as we please, that we could have the right to pursue our individual dreams, but the obligation to help our fellow citizens pursue theirs.
Look, the only obligations I have are to my God, my family, and my country. I have no obligation to you or any other human cocksucker.
Allegiance to these ideals has always been at the core of American patriotism. It's what unites a country of so many diverse opinions and beliefs. At the same time, we must never forget that honoring these ideals must mean honoring the men and women who defend them when they are wearing the uniform of the United States. This requires more than saluting our veterans as they march by in a 4th of July parade. It requires only sending them to war when we must and giving them the equipment they need to complete their mission safely. It requires giving them the care and benefits that they have earned. And it requires standing shoulder to shoulder with our veterans and their families after the guns fall silent and the cameras are turned off. We know that over the last 8 years, we've often fallen short of meeting this test. We've learned about the deplorable conditions that were discovered in places like Fort Bragg and Walter Reed. We've walked by a veteran whose home is now a cardboard box on a street corner in the richest nation on earth. Many of us have heard about what it's like to navigate the broken bureaucracy of the VA, the impossibly long lines, or the repeated calls for help that get you nothing more than an answering machine. It does not have to be this way, not in this country. There are many aspects of the war in Iraq that have gone inalterably wrong, but caring for our veterans is one thing that we can still get right. When I arrived in the Senate, I sought out a seat on the Veterans Affairs Committee so I could fight to serve our veterans as well as they've served us. We fought to make sure that the claims of disabled veterans in Illinois and other states were being heard fairly.
You fought to make sure that they lost this war.
We passed laws to get homeless veterans off the streets and to prevent at-risk veterans from getting there in the first place. I led a bipartisan effort to improve outpatient facilities in places like Walter Reed and to slash red tape and reform the disability process because recovering troops should go to the front of the line and they shouldn't have to fight to get there. And we passed laws to give family members health care while they care for injured troops, and a year of job protection so they never have to face a choice between caring for a loved one and keeping a job. But there's so much more work than we need to do in this country. We have much further to go to keep our sacred trust with the men and women who serve. And that's why I pledged to build a 21st century VA as president. It means no more red tape. It's time to give every service member electronic copies of medical and service records upon discharge. It means no more shortfalls. We'll fully fund VA health care and add more vet centers, particularly in rural areas. It means no more delays. We'll pass on-time budgets. It means no more means testing. It's time to allow every veteran into the VA system. And it means we'll have a simple principle for veterans sleeping on our streets. Zero tolerance for the conditions that allow them, that permit them to be in those circumstances. As president, I will build on the work I started in the Senate and expand housing vouchers and launch a new supportive services housing program to prevent at-risk veterans and their families from sliding into homelessness. That has to be a priority of all of us in the United States.
Thanks, Barack. It's been a blast.